Today we're looking at the geography of ancient Greece. Hello, welcome to the Daily Bellringer World History. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. Also, don't forget to check out dailybellringer.com where you'll find more resources that go with many of the Bellringer videos. The ancient Greek civilization, according to historians, came into being somewhere around 12 to 11,000 BC and would flourish for close to 1,000 years. In ancient times, there was no one country called Greece. Rather, it was a collection of city-states, and by city-states, I'm referring to a city and the surrounding land around it that functioned as their own independent country, basically with their own government and military. These city-states were located in southern Europe, and the ancient Greek civilization grew on what today would be called the Balkan Peninsula, with many city-states focused on a smaller subdivision of the Balkan Peninsula called the Peloponnesian Peninsula, which juts out into the Mediterranean Sea. Remember, a peninsula is a piece of land that is mostly surrounded by water, or basically surrounded on three sides by water. Some of the most powerful and influential city-states located in the region were Athens, which was known for being the birthplace of democracy, and Sparta, which was known for its strict military culture and great warriors. There were also a number of small islands that were considered part of Greece as well as the coastal area of Asia Minor, which is modern-day Western Turkey, along the Aegean Sea. The term Greek or Greece is actually not what the ancient people of this region would have called themselves. They called the area Hellas, or referred to themselves as Hellenes. This is of course where we get the term Hellenistic, which refers to Greek culture. The term Greek is actually what outsiders called the region and was used by the ancient Romans. Unlike other early civilizations that were focused on rivers, such as Mesopotamia with the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in the Middle East and Egypt surrounding the Nile River in northern Africa, the ancient Greeks were scattered city-states separated by water and mountains. The mountainous terrain and steep slopes of Greece made it difficult for large-scale farming to take place. Less than a quarter of the land in ancient Greece was usable for farming. However, livestock such as sheep and goats could graze on the steep slopes. The crops they did grow included grapes, olives, wheat, and barley. The grains, of course, were used to make bread, while the grapes were used for wine, and the olives were used for olive oil. The mountains also physically separated each city-state and kept them rather isolated from one another, which created a very independent spirit and fierce devotion to individual city-states. Although divided by mountains and water, these city-states did share a common language and followed the same religious practices. If there was an outside threat to the region, many times these city-states would join together to defend Greece. But for much of their history, these city-states fought for control of territory. Since land for farming was so sparse and they were surrounded on most sides by the Mediterranean, many ancient Greek city-states developed a maritime culture, which basically means a culture centered around being on the water or seas. The ancient Greeks were skilled sailors and fishermen who sailed back and forth through the Mediterranean, Ionian, and Aegean seas. Ancient Greeks caught and ate a variety of seafood from tuna, grouper, sturgeon, and even eels. Since the ancient Greeks had little in the way of farmland, they depended heavily on trade throughout the Mediterranean to fill their needs. The Greeks traded a variety of goods such as pottery, wine, metal, olives, and enslaved people. In exchange for these goods, the Greeks would get grains and other foods. The Greeks sailed extensively throughout the Mediterranean, having trade relationships with a number of civilizations. As early as 3000 BC, there's evidence that people living in the region of Greece were trading with the ancient Egyptians in northern Africa. Greek trade routes carried goods and Greek ideas throughout the Mediterranean and into parts of Asia. As Greek trade began to spread, the Greeks established colonies, which is a group of people living in a distant land from their home country. Dating back to 900 BC, there were Greek colonies being established throughout the Mediterranean and east around the Black Sea. Colonies were established as far away as modern-day Spain and France, to southern Italy in Europe, and along the northern coast of parts of Africa. The ancient Greeks would become known far and wide for their great works of architecture, philosophy, and technology. Their influence on world history would be immense, as later they would be considered the birthplace of Western civilization. So with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.